You already know which one it is. The sentence your son corrected you on last week, at his own dinner table, in front of his kids. Or the favor you said yes to on Saturday, the fourth one this month, from a child who has not called you once just to talk. You have been carrying it since it happened, turning it over, wondering if you are imagining the shrinking feeling in your chest. You are not imagining it. In 15 years running a small group in a church basement, I heard some version of that feeling from every single person who sat down in those folding chairs. Not the same story twice, but the same wound, wearing 5 different faces. For each one, I ended up with an exact sentence that worked and a pile of sentences that made everything worse. If you have a grown child who is still in your life, still calls, still shows up for Thanksgiving, but something between you has gone thin and careful, like a rug worn down to the backing, stay with me. What follows was built with you in mind. My name is Vivian Hartwell. I am 83 years old. I taught 3rd grade for 31 years in a small town in Ohio, and after I retired, I started a Tuesday evening group at Trinity Lutheran for parents whose relationships with their adult children had gone quiet in one way or another. Not estranged, most of them, just quiet, diminished. I ran that group from 1998 until my hip finally told me no in 2013. 15 years of folding chairs. I want to say something first, the way I said it to nearly every person who sat down across from me with coffee going cold in their hands. What you are feeling is not vanity. When your grown child treats you a certain way and something in your chest tightens, that is not you being too sensitive. That is you noticing something true. The question is only ever what to do with it. Here is what I learned, watching parent after parent try to fix these things. Most of us reach for one of 2 tools. We say nothing and let it corrode us quietly. Or we say too much all at once, usually at the worst possible moment, and it comes out as an accusation instead of a request. Neither one works. There is a third way, and it takes specific words, said at specific times. There are 5 of these situations I want to lay out for you. For each one, I will explain what is actually happening underneath, and then hand you the sentence itself. Situation 1. Your son or daughter corrects you in front of your grandchildren. You will know this one. You say something, the year you were married, the name of the street you grew up on, how much a gallon of milk cost in 1974, and your child jumps in. Mom, that is not right. Or Dad, that did not happen that way. Not cruelly, usually, almost cheerfully. But your grandchildren are sitting right there, and something in you shrinks by exactly one size. Here is what is underneath it most of the time. Your child is not trying to humiliate you. They are performing competence for their own children. They are showing their kids, without meaning to, that facts matter and precision matters, because that is the kind of parent they are trying to be. You have simply become the demonstration. The mistake most people make is to let it go in the moment and then bring it up later as a complaint. You always correct me in front of the kids. That lands as an attack on their parenting, and they will defend it every time. Instead, in the moment, calm, almost light, you say this. You might be right. Tell me your version. 6 words. Then you actually listen to their version, and you let it stand, even if you still believe yours. Later, privately, not that day, you can add 1 sentence. I do not mind being wrong about the milk. I do mind feeling small in front of the grandkids. That is the whole script. 2 conversations, not 1, and never in front of the children. Why this works. In the moment, you are not competing, so there is nothing for your child to defend. You have handed them the win, which costs you nothing real. Later, in private, you are not correcting their memory of the moment. You are naming your own experience, which they cannot argue with, because it is not a fact, it is a feeling, and feelings do not have a milk price attached to them. Situation 2. Your grown child calls you only when they need something. Saturday. Can you take the kids? Can you drive Aiden to practice? Can you look over this contract? And the calls that are just about you, just to talk, have quietly stopped existing. This one is sneaky because you say yes every time. Of course you say yes. It is your grandson. It is your daughter drowning under a work deadline. But somewhere in the last 2 years, the relationship became transactional without either of you deciding that on purpose. What is underneath it, in my experience, is not ingratitude. It is that you have become reliable, and reliable people get used for the thing they are reliable for. Your child is not thinking, I only value my mother for childcare. They are thinking, Mom always says yes, so this is easy, and it never occurs to them that easy and unappreciated can happen in the same breath. The mistake is to say yes silently, year after year, and then explode over something small, a forgotten thank you, a cancelled dinner, and have your child genuinely not understand why you are furious, because from where they are standing, nothing changed. Instead, the next time you say yes to a favor, you add exactly one sentence at the end of the call in the same warm tone, not a sharp one. Happy to. And next week, can we do something that is just us, no kids, no favor, just coffee? You are not refusing the favor. You are attaching a second request to it every time until it becomes a habit they expect. Why it works. You never punish the ask, so there is no guilt for them to absorb and resent. But you are training the relationship, one small addition at a time, to include you as a person and not only as a resource. Most of the parents in my group who tried this told me the same thing within 2 or 3 months. Their child started suggesting the coffee before they had to ask. Situation 3. You had a health scare, a fall, a diagnosis, a night in the hospital, and your child's response was smaller than the moment. A text, a quick call between meetings, flowers sent but not delivered by hand. I want to be careful here because this is the one that hurt the most in that church bereavement, and I watch good people turn it into something poisonous if they were not careful. The instinct is to think, if they loved me the way I love them, they would have dropped everything. And sometimes that instinct is right. But more often, what I found underneath it was this. Your child has never been taught and has never had to learn what your particular fear sounded like from the inside. They heard fall and pictured a bruise. They did not picture you on the kitchen floor for 40 minutes deciding whether you could reach the phone. The mistake is to say nothing and let a private resentment build, one that comes out sideways for years afterward in small comments they can never quite trace back to the source. Instead, once you are steady again, not in the hospital bed, not in the first raw week, you say this plainly, once. When I fell, I was more frightened than I let anyone know. I needed more from you in that moment than I got, and I wanted you to know that, not to make you feel guilty, but because I do not want to carry it alone. Then stop talking. Let it sit. Why it works. You are not accusing them of not loving you. You are giving them information they did not have, the true size of the fear, and you are explicitly removing guilt as the goal, which makes it far easier for them to actually hear you instead of defending themselves. I remember a woman in my group, Dolores, who fell reaching for a can of soup off a high shelf and lay on her kitchen linoleum for the better part of an hour before her neighbor happened to notice her porch light, still on at noon. Her son sent a fruit basket, a nice one, pears, the good kind, wrapped in that purple cellophane. For 8 months she could not look at a pear without her jaw tightening. It was only when she said the sentence out loud to him, sitting at her own kitchen table, that she found out he had been terrified to call that week because his own wife was in the middle of a difficult pregnancy and he had been rationing how much fear he could carry at once. He had never told her that. She had never asked. The pears, it turned out, were never really about the pears. Situation 4. Your child has started making small decisions about your life without asking. Canceling a doctor's appointment they decided was unnecessary. Telling you they already handled something with your bank, your insurance, your car. Each decision, on its own, sounds like help. Together, they start to feel like you are being managed. Underneath this, almost every time, is fear, not disrespect. Somewhere your child watched you struggle with something, a form, a phone call with an insurance company, a set of stairs, and it frightened them more than it frightened you, and taking over felt like the only way to make the fear stop. The mistake is to accept every one of these small takeovers silently because each one seems too small to fight about, until one day you realize you have not made a decision about your own life in months, and by then the pattern feels too large to name without a fight. Instead, the very first time it happens after you notice the pattern, you say this: I love that you want to help me. I need you to ask me before you decide something is handled, even the small things. Ask first. I might say yes. That last part matters. You are not refusing help. You are refusing to be bypassed. Why it works. Most adult children who do this are not trying to take your independence. They are trying to protect you from a fear that is theirs, not yours. And once you name the actual request, ask first. It is simple enough that they can actually follow it, instead of a vague complaint they do not know how to fix. Situation 5. Every conversation with your grown child stays on the surface. Weather, traffic, what the kids are doing in school. You ask how they are really doing, and you get fine, busy, every single time, for years. And you realize you do not actually know this person as an adult, only as a schedule. This is the quietest wound of the 5, and in my experience the hardest one to name because nothing bad is happening. No conflict, no slammed doors, just a closed door held very politely. Underneath it, usually, is that your child learned somewhere along the way that vulnerability with a parent has a cost. Worry transferred back onto them, advice they did not ask for, a version of themselves from age 14 that gets pulled back into the room the moment they admit something is hard. The mistake is to keep asking the same question, how are you really, in the same tone, expecting a different answer, when the pattern is so old it has become automatic. Instead, you go first, not with a question, with an offering. You say, I want to tell you something I have never told you, and then you tell them something true and slightly difficult about your own life, a regret, a fear, something you got wrong as a young parent. Not a lecture, a confession. Then you stop, and you do not ask them to match it. You just let the door stand open. Why it works. You cannot ask someone to be vulnerable with you from a position of authority. You can only show them it is survivable by doing it first, without collecting on it, without turning around and using what you shared as leverage later. Several people in my group did this and told me the real conversation did not come that day or that month. It came 3 months later, out of nowhere, in the car, the way real things usually do. I want to say something now to those of you whose situation is heavier than any of these 5. Maybe your child does not call at all. Maybe something actually broke between you, not just wore thin. To you I will say what I said in that basement more times than I can count. Not every door opens because you found the right sentence. Some doors stay shut for a long time, or forever, and that is not a failure of your love, and it is not proof you did something unforgivable. Grieve what is actually closed. Keep tending only the doors that are still cracked. And I want to say one more thing, because it came up on Tuesday evenings more than almost anything else. Many of you are angry underneath the hurt and ashamed of the anger because you think a loving parent should not feel it. You worked. You sacrificed things you never told anyone about. And now in the years you most need warmth returned to you, it arrives smaller than you hoped. Your anger is not a character flaw. It is proof of how much you gave. But anger spoken directly into a conversation with your child will close almost every door I ever watched open. So feel it fully somewhere else first, with a friend, in a journal, on a long walk, and bring only the love underneath it to the actual conversation. The love is the older, truer feeling. Speak from there. Here is the one thing I would want you to carry out of this room if you were sitting in my basement tonight. The relationship between you and your grown child will never be even. You held their whole childhood. To them you are a fixture, someone who is simply always there, the way a porch light is always there until the day it is not. Most of them will not understand the weight of what they carry toward you until they are the ones standing where you are standing now, watching their own children pull gently away. Until then, the patience is yours to carry. That is not fair. It is simply the position of the person who came first. If any of this helped you tonight, tell me in the comments which one of these 5 hit closest to home and how old you are, and whether your grandchild's name has ever slipped out of your child's mouth to correct you at the dinner table. I read every single one. And if you have not yet, subscribe, because I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, the same nights that basement group used to meet, which is not an accident. This is not a substitute for real help. If what you are carrying feels too heavy for a video to touch, please talk to someone, a counselor, a pastor, a friend who will actually sit with you in it. There is no shame in that. Thank you for spending this half hour with me. Be gentle with the version of yourself that is still learning how to do this. We will sit down again Thursday.